Aloha everyone, and welcome to another Carbon 60 video. And in this one I'd like to share with you the 6 experiments. But you know the drill. Before we do that, some disclaimers. This material is for research purposes only. C60 oil is not approved for consumption by the FDA. This is not medical or health advice. This is not a product endorsement. I do not sell C60 products, and I don't get paid in any way to do videos. One particular thing about this video is I highly recommend you watch the other video I made called Making C60 Oil with Pulverized C60 to get a little bit of a background in what I'll be talking about. Otherwise, you might be a little lost. So if you want to just go ahead and pause this, go watch that, and come right back, I'll be waiting for you. Meanwhile, the rest of us, let's jump in. So the 6 experiments. What I've done is I just had some questions about, using pulverized C60 with different oils and what would happen and how to do it right and, tinker, which is pretty much my life. And then so I kind of did some of that. So using pulverized C60, I kind of went ahead and did some avocado and sunflower oil experiments. And I following the directions, and of course not following the directions. I use the word adapting. That's a guy frame of reference for not following directions. I adapted, and so and I want to share what happened with all of that because the results were interesting. Also, I was tinkering around with some different kind of C60s. So number 5, I used a 99.99% sublimed C60. This is not regular C60 that you would buy like from SES. But this is like it's just basically synthesized in a different way. I'll get into that. And then also I used a product on the market that is advertised as having a huge amount of C60 molecules, monomolecular, floating around, and and because it has so much packed into a little bottle, I did an experiment with that to see if I could use it like a mother for, if you ever did sourdough bread, there's like this mother, and you can keep taking off pieces and make more. So I kind of was thinking, hey, why don't I see if I could do that with that? So I've done some of these experiments, and I just wanted to share with you because that's what I do. So let's jump right into number 1, pulverized C60 in avocado oil. And you know what? This is perfection. I'm really happy how it turned out. It couldn't get any better than this color right here. This is like literally the color of the best C60 oil you could make. And so I was really happy, and how I got there was instead of just filtering after, the drill with pulverized C60, right? You stir for a week, then you let it sit for 10 days. You filter with a 25 micron filter. You let it sit for another 10 days. You filter with a 10, which I couldn't find, so I used a 10.5 micron filter, which is 2 times, right? Filtering twice, and then that was the directions. However, by following the directions, what happened was it looks like this, and it came out really cloudy. Now, this is experiment number 2 with avocado oil, and experiment number 4 with sunflower oil. So with both batches, using pulverized C60, after the second filtering, it came out kind of cloudy, and it just, it just didn't look right to me. And it needs to look like this. This is perfection. And so what I decided to do was, well, let's just run this guy through another filter a 3rd time, and that's what I did. And this time, though, I used a much, much, much smaller filter, a 0.22 micron filter, and this is what was extracted from the solution after 2. So this is what I have found out. And I also, by playing around with my sonicator, I've discovered that 45 minutes is pretty much the best time on that. So 45 minutes, keeping it around 102 degrees, 105, around there, and filtering it a 3rd time, and you will come out with this gorgeous purple C60 oil, full of lipofullerenes, and it's literally, a commercial grade product. So I highly recommend that if for all you guys doing pulverized, go ahead and get a 3rd set of filters and go and filter this the solution, and you'll get a really, really good product. So let's talk about filtering, though, because this is what I kind of went through, which was, I got that rig after a failed attempt with Amazon, sent me this weird thing. and it was like $35.99. Okay, so really cheap, one-time purchase. That's it. And then I bought some paper filters. You have to buy a 25 micron filter. You have to buy a 10 micron filter, but the .22 ones are a little bit more expensive. They don't come like the other two come at 100 a pack. The .22 ones come at 50 a pack for like 18 something, and so they come out like 37 cents each. But my failed attempt was I used one of these throwaway guys, which was $6.93 each. And the problem was, this is what happened after I did the first 25, let it sit, and then run it again at 10.5 for me. This was the two avocados, and this was the sunflower, and you can see how it did filter out a whole bunch of impurities, for that lack of a better word, and so it worked really well. And then I figured, okay, well, now that I filtered out the impurities, and then it looked like this, so I wasn't happy. So let's go ahead and try filtering it through one of these to see if I could get it better. And then what happened was I got it better. But the problem was, this is the filter, and it got blocked so fast that I only got about 50 milliliters out of it. And so it is a huge waste of $7 if you're only going to get a little itty bitty bit of C60 oil out of it, the end product. So the one thing I do want to share with you, though, through this learning experience that I have learned, I want to share with you, don't use these guys. Just buy yourself a third set of filters, the little paper round things that you can stick right in here, and you're only going to do it 37 cents each. So I'm figuring that for me to run the whole batch, like this whole thing full, it got blocked at 50 milliliters. You're probably going to use up maybe 6 to 8 of these guys to go through here, but 6 to 8 of these guys is so much cheaper than this. So that's another thing I want to share with you is buy the .22s, use them on your pulverized C60 as your third filter. Use this rig. It's so much cheaper if you use paper filters, and then that way this gets blocked and you have to throw it away. So it's cheaper to throw a piece of paper away than it is to throw the whole filter thing away, and that's how you get perfection. That's avocado and sunflower oil experiments 1, 2, and 4. So as you know, I tinker, and so one of the things I wanted to do was experiment number 2, which was what would happen, because you guys watched my other video where I was using powdered C60, regular powdered C60, and I had some like this film of it left in the bottom of the sonicator when I was using that little guy, and I wanted to see if I could capture that because this is not cheap stuff. So I poured more oil in, I sonicated it up, and boom, I was able to make a second batch and not waste any C60. So with pulverized C60, I wanted to see if I could do the same thing with that. So when I had finished doing the first filtering, I took the flask. I do just like I do with the powder. If it's like, let's say as an example, 100 milliliters, I'd add, the first batch. The second batch would be half of that. So I added 50% more oil to the flask, and then I basically sonicated that, or stirred it and sonicated it, and let it sit, filter it out. And then after 2 filters, just treating it like a fresh batch, trying to see if I could reclaim the residual avocado oil. The residual C60 on the bottom of the flask. This is what it turned out. It came out this real weird orange color after I filtered it the 2 times. I didn't filter this the 3rd time because when I was looking at this, and it just wasn't coming out, because this is what a normal batch would look like. This was me trying to reclaim a residual batch. And if you take a look at the sun, it's really nice to have the sun behind you to do this. Take a look at this color. Now this is the perfection batch. This is the cloudy avocado. This is the cloudy sunflower oil, and then this is that residual, that my attempt at reclaiming residual in it. It's like this funky orange color, and I just didn't like the color. I just think, and this is my opinion, is that because what Martin at Red Lion had said was, that the C60 at the monomolecular level binds with all of the impurities of the oil, and it all floats sinks to the bottom. And so what you're seeing there is not really C60 on the bottom. It's like this impurity sludge, for lack of a better word. And when I tried to use that sludge to make C60 oil, I got this kind of gross looking orange stuff. So I threw it away. And so my personal recommendation is don't bother trying to save that stuff. And I'm sure Martin will agree because he always talks about frequency, and that stuff's real low frequency, and this beautiful purple color is high frequency, and it's better for you, and this is not as good for you. So that experiment did not work out. Well, actually, it worked out. I got results, and the results taught me something. So what it taught me was don't bother, and I threw all that out and didn't mess with it. So I learned something there as well. And that takes us through experiments 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, before I talk about experiment 5, I wanted to just share with you something that's kind of cool, which is how do you synthesize C60? And so what's really cool is since my last video, a lady who's got a channel called, her name is Gwen Foster, has a YouTube channel, and she had on as an interviewee this guy, and this guy is Chris Burres of SES Research. And so for any of you who actually read the 2012 Paris rat study that started off the whole C60 oil craze thing, this guy is one of the co-founders of the company that sold the C60 powder to the French who used it in that rat study, and they have been around since 1991. So think about that. These folks, if you listen to the interview, it's a fascinating backstory. SES, or Chris Burres, and his partner Anthony, I'm sorry, I don't remember the last name. Those two guys actually worked with the 3 Nobel laureate winning scientists who discovered C60 in '86, and they won the Nobel Prize in '96. And Anthony and Chris together worked with those guys, the graduate students for that professor, to figure out exactly how they did it, how they discovered it and how they synthesized it, and then they used that process at SES to make C60 powder, and they are one of the major suppliers in the U.S. So really in tune, plugged in person, and she interviews this guy. First time this guy ever showed up on YouTube. So if you watch the video, it's really cool if you're into this stuff. And he talks about how you make C60. And so in his discussion, he was talking about they have to create an arc. Basically, a little bolt of lightning goes between 2 quarter-inch graphite rods inside of a vacuum-sealed tube. I think they're using argon gas or something, helium, and then the soot that just flies off of it. And this thing is like the heat of the sun, right? And the soot that flies off of it is captured, and then they use solvents. So that's step 2 of the process, is they use solvents. Or SES uses solvents, okay? Because he says in his video, by the way, links in the description, as you guys know, and he says in the video that that the way that SES does it is they use solvents, toluene, to then dissolve the C60 in the toluene, and then they do something with that fluid, and they separate out the different colors that represent the different carbons, C60, C70, and so forth. And that's how SES does it. So then once SES separates out the color that they want of the C60 inside the toluene, which is really toxic, by the way, they put it in a baking chamber, and they bake off the basically heat up and bake off the solvent, and the toluene is gone, and then they proclaim it solvent free and sell it to us, right? The other thing, he actually touches on it, but he doesn't go into much detail, but he actually says in his video, he says, well, there's another way to do it, and that's the sublimation process, and he mentions that it's really very much more complicated and expensive, and so they don't do it that way at SES. So this is a real interesting, and the reason I'm talking about this is because I like to tinker, and so if there's a different C60 out there or a different oil, I'm going to try it to see what happens, because that's what I do. So I just wanted to, one other thing I do want to share with you. This is a kind of a cool video that I stumbled across that's an example of how C60 is synthesized. So like in this video, let me see if I can find it. It's just this video, links in the below, but this is an experiment in a lab where they take this chamber, okay, and this is the description. It's in German, so it's translated, and the translation comes out to generation of stardust fullerenes in a vacuum in a helium atmosphere by evaporation of graphite rods in an arc. Okay, so here you go. And so this is actually how scientists create, or I'm sorry, extract C60. It's in a tube of helium, and then they create that arc between two graphite rods, as you just saw. And then there you go. So there it goes, and this is the video. It's really kind of cool. So you can see the carbon building up on the inside of the tube. Very, very hot. This is actually the temperature of the sun. I mean, as you know, lightning bolts are the temperature of the sun. It fries both of those graphite rods. The soot accumulates on the outside, or I'm sorry, the inside of the tube. And that's actually step one of the process. So I'm going to see if they can turn the lights back on. And there you go. And that's right here. So then what you would do is you would scrape that off, and that's your step one. Okay. And so this is kind of a cool thing. I wanted to just share that with you. Forgot I put it in the slide. So now, what is Sublime C60? So where I got the Sublime C60, which is basically advertised at 99.99 plus. So that means it could, it literally is 99.9999, and it's so pure, and because the way they didn't use solvents, which is, that's my thing. I don't want to, I don't want to take in solvents, but I asked Dr. Markovich of MTR Limited, links in video description, what his sublimation process was. And this is a direct quote email. Basically, from MTR, they said, they don't do it like SES, they do it their own way. Actually, I'm sorry, they do have non-Sublime C60 on their website, and they have Sublime. So they do it both ways, sorry. But I wanted to try the Sublime. 1 gram of the 99.99% Sublime C60 at MTR is $109. Okay? And if you buy the non-sublimed 99.95, I think it's like $59. So MTR, by the way, has the best prices on raw C60, and links below. So anyway, that's enough about that. But anyway, the sublimation process is within many years we produce this spherical fullerenes by modified arc discharge Kachmir Huffman production method, and then for their separation and precision purification we use advanced sublimation technology, which is the fullerenes are vaporized in a vacuum based on a special temperature gradient techniques which do not involve solvents, and therefore avoids any possible contamination from solvent used in common solvent-based purification technology. It's very important for effective application sublime fullerenes in biomedicine. It is 100% solvent-free. So, it is kind of cool. So for those of you guys who are really conscious of, you don't want to take anything that's been run through a toxic chemical, even though SES and MTR themselves, they sell a non-sublimed, but the non-sublime still has gone through toluene, right, through the process. The toluene has been fired off, and what's left is the powder, the granular powder. Okay. But in this other process, which is twice as expensive to buy because it's twice as much work, it never touches any solvents at all, and they just vaporize it. And so there is a second way, and it's called sublimed. And so one of the cool things about working with MTR as opposed to SES, though, and I'm not picking favorites, by the way, but MTR is really cool. I did ask for certification of the fullerenes that I was buying. Link below if you want to take a read. And I honestly don't understand what most of this is saying to me, but this is a HPLC, high performance liquid chromatography purity analysis of Sublime fullerene C60 99.99. So this is if anyone ever asks for or wants to show you, this is what they call a materials specifications that proves to you, it's their certificate that this is what it says it is. And so this is what that report looks like, and I actually gave you a copy if you want to take a look at it in the video description. So that's kind of the story behind C60. There's two different ways that are known to make it, and that is through solvents and through sublimed. So what happens when you use the one that's sublimed? Now this is the thing, this is what I did. I just basically took the powder, I stirred it for 2 weeks, just like the rat study, and I just didn't, at the time, I just didn't have a .22 filter, so I just used my closest one, which is 10.5, and look at it. It just came out beautiful. I mean, this is as perfect as this. Look at that. That's with the pulverized 3 filters, And this is with one filter, and that's the Sublimed. I mean, it is so pure that it just turned purple and perfect in the very first attempt. And I didn't even sonicate it, I just stirred it up. So for those of you who are really into super high quality, products and ingredients for what you're doing, you might want to try this. It's pretty cool, and I was very happy with how it turned out. It's just this deep, beautiful purple, and I was very satisfied with it. So that was actually a little test. That was like a 100 milliliter test. So now so here's the thing about C60. So those are the two ways, right? Now, according to an individual named Bob Greska of a product called Carbon-60, that he's created a third way. And so what I wanted to share with you was, here's the third thing. The Carbon-60, I did the exact same thing, but this was the kind of the thing like I was saying about the mother, right? If you saw, there's a video he put out where he shows like 1 gram of his C60 powder compared to 1 gram of everybody else's C60 powder, and everybody else is like this little tiny itty bitty pile in a dish, and his is like the whole freaking dish is full, right? And it's so poofy, and it's so, it's so fine, and he shakes it up in the flask, and it's just like fine. I mean, it's like just like soot, basically it's like black air. I mean, it's so fine. So I thought that was really cool. And so, like I said, I decided, well, could I use this to make C60 oil? Because I'm thinking of it like how you get pulverized C60, right? You get it floating in alcohol. Well, I was thinking, well, if I go to Carbon-60 and buy a bottle of that, it's like C60 floating in sunflower oil, right? So same kind of concept, right? You get a C60 in a fluid. So I took, so this was experiment number 6 was, I took the Carbon-60, I doubled the amount of oil. So all I had, because I was taking it myself for a while. And so all I had left was about 40 milliliters. So I made 80 milliliters of sunflower oil, organic cold pressed sunflower oil. And then I did the same thing. I stirred it for 2 weeks and I filtered it through the 10.5 micron filter. And then the solution came out, and this is what it looks like. And so it came out black, and there's no purple coloration. So what's real interesting, and I just want to point this out, was this is pure C60, never touched a solvent, and it's purple. So there's nothing in it other than C60. So that means the true color of C60 is purple. And so now the C-60 product is claiming to be C60, and it comes out black. So, and of course it's proprietary, and I don't blame him. He doesn't want to share how he makes it, and he doesn't want to sell the powder. So the only way you can do this is to buy the product and then do what I did. But here's the thing though, after I filtered it, it does liposomal the carbon in the oil, and you get this dark colored C60 oil. Okay, and so you can make C60 oil with that product, but it doesn't look like the other C60 oil. And I look at that as the third way. And so I just want to show you too, here's the difference in the filters. When I filtered out the Carbon-60, I got basically the carbon came out, and then it turned into that. And then when I filtered out the Sublime C60, like basically nothing came out. I'll just blow this up a little bit so you can see it a little bit closer. But basically nothing, the filter, whoop, that didn't work out. There we go. A little bit too big. Oh, sorry. Okay, but there you go. And so this is the Sublime C60 over here. And so you could see where, even though there was a residual in both flasks, the filter was everything. All of this went straight through the filter. And there was nothing caught up, and then you could see where the actual Carbon-60 actually filtered out some of the whatever the impurities of the oil or the C60 that was floating in it. But at the end of the day, though, it still made it through the filter, and you actually end up with a Carbon-60 oil. It just doesn't look purple, and that's the end of that. So those are my 6 experiments. I'm just tinkering around. I know some of you are very interested in this stuff, so I just am here to share, and I hope this was educational and interesting for you. And I thank you very much for stopping by. I know there's a million videos for you to watch every day, and for you to watch one of mine, I am humbled and I'm very appreciative. And thank you for stopping by. I hope you have a great day. Keep learning, keep experimenting, keep doing your thing, and you know what? We only get better by sharing what we know, and it's all good stuff. So hey, thanks a lot. Aloha. Have a great day.